How am I going to go there? How am I going to go where? How am I going to go up front there? How am I going to go?
How to invest in homes and generate revenue, cash flow. Now, one of the great things about real estate is that there's many different ways to invest. In other words, you're going to have options. So some people don't want to actually invest in property, but they do want to invest in real estate. For example, they want to hire a professional manager to invest their money, and so they want to still be involved in income property. So how do they do that? Well, you can do that with REITs, which are called REITs, and they're public and they're open to people investing. And sometimes you can get in for as low as $5,000. So many investors like that kind of investment. Now, there's a lot of real estate funds out there that are professionally managed. So some of them do residential properties, some of them do commercial properties, others do hotels and storage facilities and so on. So there's a lot of those kind of investments out there that generate revenue and in some cases even do cash flow. So of course you could do farm investments, you could do private investments. Now you might know that vacation homes, a lot of those people do private investments and bring people in. And if you watch television, well, you know about the renovators, because what they do is they buy mediocre houses and then they try to make them into mansions, and they generate private money and sometimes public money. So each of these investments has its own risk and its own rewards. So I'm going to talk about one thing, and what I usually talk about is tax defaulted property, and that's because I've spent the last years doing that. So this episode is all about how to invest in homes and generate revenue and in cash flow. So newcomers generally start with single family properties, okay? Now they like those, and it just seems traditional for people to do that. But there's a lot of competition. As a matter of fact, depending upon who's doing the counting, there could be as many as 14 million rental homes across the United States. In other words, it's a pretty big business. I'll be right back. All right, now my name is Ted Thomas. I've been involved in tax defaulted property for the past 30 years. Now, this is really nothing more than a subset of the traditional real estate business, which would be single-family homes. It would be vacant residential lots that are buildable, could be small apartments, could be small office buildings, could be small farms. You're kind of getting the idea. Even some 4 and 5 acre residential lots. So that's what I've been involved in, and that's my perspective towards the business of generating revenue and doing cash flow. So as I say, this is just a subset of the regular business that you guys already know about in regular real estate. All right, now, how do we get to tax defaulted real estate? Well, some people don't pay their taxes. So failing to pay the property tax creates some consequence. It has a consequence for the property owner, and it has a consequence for the county. All right, the county is going to take some action to get those bills paid. So what does the county do if you don't pay the property tax? Well, in all 50 states, the legislature, which governs the state laws, they have passed rules down to the local county that says taxes must be levied and taxes must be collected. So the county treasurer and the tax collector, they put the property in default, they issue due process notice of defaults, and if those people don't pay the taxes, well, guess what's going to happen? That property is going to be seized, in other words, confiscated by the local government, and then the local government's going to do what with it? They don't want the property, so they're going to sell that property. Now, this is taking place in over 3,000 counties across the United States. So all 3,000 plus counties are separate jurisdictions. That means there's separate auctions for tax defaulted property. All right, now these are usually accomplished annually, although some counties will have so many properties that they'll do more than one auction in the course of a year. Now, what's the county going to do? They're going to sell these properties for very close to the back taxes, or even 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. Now, when they're selling property for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, keep in mind every property is going to have a tax assessed value, but they're going to sell down here at 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. So this is the margin that you've got to work with, the margin between what you pay for it and the tax assessed value. Well, that's going to be the margin that you're going to be able to make on these kind of properties. All right, so that means properties could be sold at auction for 60, 70, 80% discounts from the tax assessed value. All right, now the treasurer, when they sell the property, the treasurer tax collector will delete the mortgage. In other words, they're going to cancel, they're going to extinguish the mortgage or deed of trust loan. All right, so that's really going to help the person that's buying, because they're going to buy a property that doesn't have a mortgage or a trust deed encumbrance on the property. So these could be good rental properties. So if you wanted to rent a property, you could buy it low, then you could still have value and still be able to rent them. It's going to depend upon the condition. It's going to be up to you to determine all that. So this episode is discussing how to invest in houses and generate cash flow. My perspective is I want to buy it low, then I want to sell it low, and I want to be doing this with tax defaulted property. All 3,000 counties are going to sell these properties. I'm trying to buy for 10 cents, 20 cents, or 30 cents on the dollar. So think about this. You could just ask yourself the question, if you could buy slightly used and abused properties for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, and then you could put a sign in the front lawn, or you could sit at your computer and sell it on Craigslist or eBay or the multiple listing service or any one of those, Truly or Zillow. So if you could buy for 10 or 20 cents and sell for 50 or 60 cents, would that work for you? Well, of course it would work, because you can make some pretty good dollars if you spent 20 cents on the dollar and sold it for 60 cents on the dollar, and you didn't have to hold on to the property. All right, so if that would work for you, this is the business that we're talking about. The county definitely needs the money to pay all their bills. So they're going to sell these properties at auction, starting bids 10 and 20 cents on the dollar. You'd be helping yourself because you could take care of your family. Now, I don't know, maybe you're an entrepreneur, or maybe you want to be one. So people have different personal and professional motivations. What's yours? I don't know. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be recognized? What are you after here? All right, so entrepreneurs, the biggest reason most people end up as entrepreneurs is they don't fit into a corporate mold. In other words, they don't like being in a template and working in a corporation. All right, now that doesn't mean that you're going to leave that corporation and have an easy street, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they go home to work, they no longer work 40 hours, they now work 60 hours to make the same or less money. So don't quit your job. I tell people, rule number one is don't quit your job. Rule number two is re-listen to rule number one, and that is don't quit your job. So kind of think about that. So today's episode is how to invest and generate revenue and cash flow. All right, so tax defaulted real estate is slightly used and abused. Some of them are junkers, but many of them just need to be cleaned up and then they could be sold. Now, I tell people, don't buy the junker property. Junk is junk. Never going to be able to recycle that and fix it. We do want to buy these properties and recycle them. So we want to buy used and abused. We might have to touch them up and clean them up, but we could rent those properties for high revenue and cash flow, or we could sell those properties, and I teach people how to do both of those. So everyone can give you advice about tax liens and tax lien. Old people give you advice, young people give you advice, even your relatives are going to give you advice, even people that don't even like you, they'll give you advice. Here's the problem. What's important is realize if you're getting advice from other people, do they know anything about tax lien? Have they studied tax liens and deeds? If they haven't, it's important to understand they're probably not going to be able to help you. You need to learn this on your own. If they don't have expertise, how are they going to give you advice? All right, so there's plenty of opportunities in this business, and you're going to be able to buy properties for wholesale prices because the government doesn't want the property. What's the government want to do with these properties? They want to get rid of them. So the local county seizes the property, then they motivate sellers to come in by keeping the price low. So the price might start out at auction at just the back taxes or 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. Now, folks, I know you don't know everything about this. I always recommend you'll learn a lot more and you'll accelerate your learning by having a coach. I'm always recommending coaches. All right, so people don't know how to make money in this business. So we're going to teach you a little bit about it. Okay, I know there's a lot of promises that you're going to get rich on late night television and internet courses and all that. I'm not going to promise you that, but I will tell you this, that there's plenty of properties and there's going to be over 3,000 tax defaulted auctions. On the second thought, there's going to be over 5,000 auctions this year, but there's 3,000 different counties doing those auctions. So my intention is to show you the possibilities so that you can make money, small amounts of money, make large profits. Small amounts of money, large profits. And I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. All right, so you're going to be able to stop worrying and turn the future into what you want it to be. Now, it doesn't take a lot of time to buy one of these properties, then sell it back into the market and have generated money quickly. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. All right, the small population counties, they're going to have dozens of properties. They might even have 100 properties that are single-family homes that you could buy to generate revenue and cash flow. Now, the large population counties, they're going to have hundreds. Sometimes they're even going to have thousands of these tax-defaulted properties to sell. All right, I don't know how many each one of these auctions is going to have, but don't be surprised if there's 1,000 properties that you have to choose from at a tax-defaulted auction. This is happening every day across America. Remember, the county doesn't want the property. They're going to sell the property, starting bid, back taxes. Now, just because they start out at 10 cents on the dollar does not mean the auction is going to finish at 10 cents on the dollar. That auction is going to go to the property is going to go to the highest bidder.
How better go there, how better go there, how better go where, how better go here, how bid now.
So it might start out at 10 cents, but it might end up at 50 or 70 cents. I don't know what it'll end up at, but you want to buy it right so that you can sell it right or so that you can rent it and make money. Folks, if you can buy properties for 10 cents on the dollar and then resell them for 50 and 60 cents on the dollar, I'm sure you'd want to be in a business that could do that. Well, that's what this is all about. Now, how are you going to sell those properties? Well, that's one of the keys. You're going to use Craigslist. You're going to use eBay. You're going to use a multiple listing. How about Trulia and Zillow? How about putting signs on the front lawn? There's lots of ways to sell property, but you got to give that some thought. So this system always works. Why does the system work? Because I've tested it and I perfected it in the trenches with real properties when real big money was online. So we can teach you how to do this step by step. Okay, now throughout these videos, I tried to give you examples of some interesting examples. I'm going to show you one of those right now. So I'm going to tell you about a married couple from Wisconsin that learned how to do this, and they went right to work on it. As soon as they finished the classrooms, they started doing this. So they paid $8,000 for a livable home that was valued at $55,000. All right, now they followed the same process that I told them in the training and their coaches told them that. They didn't fix the property, they cleaned it up, and they put signs on the front lawn. All right, now they purchased at a low price, $8,000. Now that $8,000 was less than 20 cents on the dollar. So they cleaned it up. That added another $4,000 to their purchase price. So now they have a total of $12,000 invested. So what did they do? Well, they wanted to sell the property. So they used all the marketing techniques that we had taught them. And sure enough, they sold the property and they made a profit. They sold it for $35,000. They bought it for $12,000. They sold it for $35,000. They made a $23,000 profit. They did that within 60 days. Now, the buyer requested an installment sale. In other words, the buyer wanted to pay monthly for the property. Well, we happen to think that that's a good, positive way to sell. We call that a contract for deed installment sale. So they generated another $15,000 on the interest on that sale. Think about that. They already made $23,000. Now they're going to make money lending money and getting it on a monthly basis. Overall, they made a 40% annualized return on a $12,000 investment. Folks, 40% when the banks are paying 1% sounds pretty good to me. Now, this system works because it's tested, it's perfected, and where did we perfect it? In the trenches, making real deals when real money was on the line. Yes, I know what I've said to you is contrarian. However, this is the best way I know to build high income and let you live almost any lifestyle you want to do it. Now, if you continue doing what everyone else is doing, you're going to get what everyone else is getting. Unfortunately, scarcity is not enough money. Now, two things to remember. If you're going to buy at auction, you must have boots on the ground, and here's a whole bunch of reasons why. You don't know if it burned down. You don't know if it's next to a chicken farm or a pig farm. You don't know if it's had a windstorm damage. You don't know any of the number of things that could happen to a property. So don't buy a property without looking. While you're there looking, look at the neighborhood. Is the neighborhood good? If you want to rent the property, it's going to have to be in a decent neighborhood. Otherwise, you won't get decent clients. Your exit strategy, you have to have that plan. So when you buy the property, look around and know what your exit strategy is going to be. I'm Ted Thomas. If you'd like to have an auction list, it's free. Just register below. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.